Syracuse basketball gets set for the Legends Classic, which begins tonight against Texas. How are the Orange gonna fare?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on this week's Poll Friday, on a Thursday, I understand, but I don't make the schedule for athletics. We are talking all things Syracuse basketball, and the Legends Classic this weekend starts tonight and it ends on Friday, and I'm going to be giving you guys my record prediction for that, and that was this week's poll. What is your record prediction for Syracuse basketball in the next 2 days? So on this podcast, we're going to kind of treat it. It's going to be a mini podcast still, but it might be a longer mini podcast. We are going to treat it as kind of a preview for the Legends Classic, if you will, okay? I'm going to give you guys some context. I'm going to talk about Texas a little bit because that's the upcoming opponent for Syracuse. They're playing them tonight at 7 o'clock. And then I'll basically give you kind of the permutations and my logic as to why I think they're going to go ultimately 1-1 in this tournament. So that's what we're going to talk about here on this week's edition of Poll Friday on a Thursday, a Legends Classic record prediction / preview. Again, I think Syracuse basketball is going to go 1-1 in this tournament. I promise I'll get to the poll results in a second. First, some context, because I understand that some of you guys who are watching or listening to this podcast, you might be watching or listening for the very first time, and shout out to you guys if you're following along this podcast for the first time, or you just might be a very casual fan, and that's totally okay. There's no judgment here. That's why I'm here to tell you about the Legends Classic for Syracuse basketball, okay? For context, it's taking place at the Barclays Center. All the games at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. That means that every game will be considered a neutral site game. That's important when it comes to advanced metrics. There's home, there's road, and there's neutral site. That matters for the advanced metrics, okay? There are 4 teams that are participating in the Legends Classic. It's Syracuse, of course, Texas, Texas Tech, and St. Joe's. So 4 pretty good programs. Syracuse basketball tips it off at 7 Eastern tonight against Texas. And depending on the outcome of their game against Texas, they're going to play either Texas Tech or St. Joe's. They're going to play either the winner or loser of that game. But that game's not taking place till after Syracuse plays. So we're not going to know after we either win, hopefully we win, or lose the game, hope that doesn't happen, who we're going to play next. But we are going to play also on Friday. That's what you need to know about that. I'll get to the poll results in a second, but I want to give you guys my thoughts a little bit through 3 games. They are 3-0, and that's the best part. They are 3-0, and you can't ask for much more than being 3-0, right? 3-0 is better than 2-1. We'd all agree it's better than 1-2. It's better than 0-3. You're perfect. You're 3-0. That's great. Here's the thing, though. They have not looked great through 3 games. And that's why ultimately I'm honestly being optimistic saying they're going to go 1-1. They have not looked great at all. And you can't dismiss that. I'll tell you why you can't dismiss it, okay? I know they've won, but you cannot get rid of it. It matters for advanced metrics, okay? They're low in the KenPom and they're low in the net right now. Why does that matter? Isn't it about winning games? Well, yes. If you have a certain record, it doesn't really matter how tight the games might be. But if Syracuse is in a scenario where hopefully they're on the bubble or better come March, where it could come down to advanced metrics and how pretty you look for the NCAA tournament. So that's why it does matter. So even though they've won their games, which they should be doing anyway, they have not looked very good, and that is concerning. And the other way to look at it is if they keep playing this way, we might find out tonight against Texas how that's going to go for them. Hopefully they can step up their game. They're going to have to play better against a team like Texas in order to win. For what it's worth, the teams that they have barely beaten, Lemoyne since then has been blown out by St. Bonaventure and UConn. Colgate got crushed by NC State afterwards, and Youngstown State before the Syracuse game was destroyed by Ohio State. At least Syracuse basketball has avoided disaster to this point because they are 3-0. They very easily could be 0-3 too, but they have made enough plays to win. Those are my thoughts heading in. As far as the poll results, there were over 400 total votes on this week's Poll Friday on a Thursday. Most of you guys actually agree with me. It was 47% of the vote said 1-1 for the Legends Classic. I'll get to it why in a second. Second place was 0-2. Some of you guys, a decent number of you guys are pretty pessimistic, and I don't blame you. They haven't looked good through 3 games. That was at 35%, and 18% of you guys, that was a high number. I was kind of surprised, said 2-0. So you guys, some of you guys are just very optimistic. About 1 in 5 people are very optimistic that they're going to go 2-0 in this thing. I hope they do. But I'm going to say 1-1. I'm in the agreement with 47% of you guys. First of all, they got Texas tonight. We can talk about Texas because we know they're going to play them. I can't talk much about the next game because we don't technically know who we're going to play, but we kind of know, but we don't. Texas is a guarantee. They're playing them tonight. They lost their season opener to Ohio State, but they have rebounded with 3 dominant victories. I know they've played nobody in those 3 games, but they have dominated those games. And folks, Syracuse basketball has played basically nobody's for the first 3 games, and they did not crush them. So it matters that a team like Texas is blowing out teams they should blow out. It matters. It's going to be a tough matchup. They are a fringe top 25 team as we speak right now. And Texas is led by a 5-star freshman forward in Tre Johnson. He is off to a blistering start. He's probably the best player on the floor, and I don't even think it's close. I really don't. 24 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. That's cool. It's the efficiency, though, that really stands out. He's 59% from the field as a 6'6 forward, and he's 59% from 3. You heard me correctly. Tre Johnson shooting 59% from 3. They're also supposed to be getting their Arkansas transfer guard, Tremont Mark, back. That's what John Rothstein reported yesterday. He's recovering from an ankle injury. He averaged 16 points a game over at Arkansas last year, a team that I think was pretty good. They also have Arthur Kaluma in the front court. Syracuse fans might have heard of him because he was once a Syracuse commit, but he decommitted. They are a very, very good team. I know they lost their season opener to Ohio State, but this is still a fringe top 25 team and a team that should make the NCAA tournament this season. For Syracuse basketball, ideally they win this one, but I think this is where the loss comes. I do think they're going to lose tonight. You want a score prediction? I think it's going to be 87-74 Texas. Hopefully it's somewhat competitive, but I think Texas is going to pull away in the end. Once again, this is Poll Friday on a Thursday. Record prediction for the Legends Classic for Syracuse basketball. I say 1-1. I think the loss is coming tonight against Texas. What are your thoughts on the game tonight against Texas and on the tournament as a whole? Leave your comments in the comments section below. Folks, coming up, I'm going to talk about where I think Syracuse is going to win and some other ideal scenarios or not so ideal scenarios for the Orange in this tournament. Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it and wind up with something disappointing or nothing at all. Are you buying for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable? Are you tired of wasting money on useless clutter that no one really needs? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Stylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. The setup takes about 60 seconds. Seamless sharing, and invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Stylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription is required. You can add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest and easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Stylight frame when you go to stylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at stylightframe.com/college. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Now, the last time I checked, we're going to talk some Syracuse football for a second. Last time I checked on FanDuel, they are a 10.5-point favorite against UConn at home with a money line at -360 this Saturday. Syracuse football just pulled off an upset, and it was around the same line. So how are they going to handle this week being the favorite? Well, that's up for you to decide. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. And on this week's Poll Friday on a Thursday, I'm giving you guys my record prediction for the Legends Classic, which starts tonight for Syracuse against Texas. And then they are going to play another game on Friday, either the winner or the loser of the matchup after Syracuse tonight, which is Texas Tech and St. Joe's. Folks, my record prediction is 1-1. I think the loss is going to come tonight, though, against Texas. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below on the Legends Classic for Syracuse and give your record prediction for the Orange. Are you optimistic that they're going to go 2-0? Or are you like me, think they're going to go 1-1? Or are you pessimistic and think they're going to go 0-2? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's now continue, okay? It's kind of a preview-ish Poll Friday on a Thursday. Once again, we don't know, as of this moment, who Syracuse is going to play. I think we have a pretty safe idea of who Syracuse is going to play, but we don't know. What I will say is that the likely winner of Texas Tech and St. Joe's is probably going to be Texas Tech. Texas Tech is probably going to win. They're a fringe top 25 team similar to Texas, and they have maybe the best player in the country right now in JT Toppin. So I don't want to get too in the weeds of previewing that type of game, but I think that it would be St. Joe's. So in my scenario, I think Syracuse basketball loses tonight against Texas, and then Texas Tech beats St. Joe's, which means that tomorrow they're going to play St. Joe's. And I think that's where Syracuse is going to get their win. The reason why I think they're going to win is because they're very similar teams. Maybe I'll do a mini podcast tomorrow breaking down the next matchup, no matter who it is. It's either going to be Texas Tech or St. Joe's. But I'll do a mini podcast probably on it, breaking down the game overall. But if you look at KenPom right now between Syracuse and St. Joe's, they're actually very similar teams. Syracuse is down to 107 in the KenPom, which is not very good. St. Joe's is at 101. So they're two fairly even teams. St. Joe's, they have a better point differential against inferior opponents. It's not really by much. I mean, they beat Villanova for what it's worth. Villanova is terrible this year. But St. Joe's does have the quote-unquote disaster loss. That's the thing, though. See, Syracuse didn't lose any of their games, so they avoided disaster. St. Joe's did have a disaster loss. They lost to Central Connecticut. Central Connecticut is 249 in the KenPom right now. 249. Do you understand how low that is? There are only 68 teams that make the NCAA tournament. There's only about 40-ish at-large bids, I want to say. You're pretty low at 240. Oof, 249, and they lost to Central Connecticut. That's why St. Joe's is so low. And why Syracuse is so low is because they're barely beating the inferior teams. It's a very interesting matchup. But I think that's the game that Syracuse is going to win. I think it would be a close game, and I would break it down more tomorrow if this is the scenario that happens. But this is a record prediction. And what I think is going to happen is Syracuse loses tonight against Texas. Texas is on paper a better team. And then they play St. Joe's tomorrow, but they beat St. Joe's and they go 1-1. That's the most likely outcome, in my opinion. However, I see scenarios, I guess, where they go 2-0. And I also see scenarios where they go 0-2. First of all, let's talk about my scenario for a second. If they lose to Texas tonight, they could lose to St. Joe's. They could and go 0-2. That would be the worst case scenario, by the way, if they lose to St. Joe's as well, because St. Joe's is not a great team. The other scenario, very unlikely, is they lose to Texas, but Texas Tech loses to St. Joe's. And so therefore we're playing Texas Tech, and that's probably going to be 0-2. But I don't think that's going to happen because I don't see Texas Tech losing, and that's the better of the two 0-2s. There's also a better scenario where Syracuse goes 1-1. Hope you guys can follow along my logic here, right? Because right now I have Syracuse going 1-1. They lose to Texas, but then they beat St. Joe's. However, I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing if Syracuse just win this game tonight. It would be better if they won this game tonight and then they lost to Texas Tech. How about that? Like, that's not terrible. I would take that's a better 1-1 than the scenario that I think is going to happen. But it's still 1-1. That's the interesting part about this tournament. Each team's only playing 2 games. And then, 2-0. The most unlikely one is they beat Texas and Texas Tech. The potential one that could happen is you beat Texas and you pray that St. Joe's upsets Texas Tech, and then you're playing St. Joe's for a chance to go 2-0. But I think the two most likely outcomes, if I was a betting man, is they go 1-1, no matter what they lose tonight, but they go 1-1 and they beat St. Joe's, or they lose to St. Joe's to go 0-2. Those are my thoughts. Just of what I've seen through 3 games, I could be wrong, and maybe Syracuse plays great and they win both, no matter who they play. But those are my thoughts on the Legends Classic for this weekend. Once again, they're playing tonight against Texas, and then they're going to play either the winner or the loser of Texas Tech and St. Joe's. Leave your comments in the comment section below, your record prediction for Syracuse football, not football, Syracuse basketball this weekend, okay? As far as what is coming up on the podcast going forward, post-game after Texas tonight, they tip off at 7 Eastern. I will be with you guys after the game. Tomorrow morning, it's not definite. I don't want to promise you guys this, but I am definitely thinking about doing a mini preview just for the next game. They're either going to play Texas Tech or St. Joe's. So I'll certainly be watching the game, and maybe I'll do a mini preview on that as well. And then tomorrow night, a post-game reaction to that game. Hopefully it's not after Syracuse goes 2-0. I'll take 1-1 at this point. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And folks, I hope you enjoyed a longer edition of Poll Friday on a Thursday. Legends Classic thoughts, record prediction. I will see you all tonight after Texas. Everyone, take care.